Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and in this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. We have lots of very interesting updates, and first let's talk about the southern part of Russian Federation. The Russians reported that they managed to discover another drone above Armavir. So this is very important because I'll remind you that Armavir is the area where we can find another early warning system of Russian Federation, the system that will warn the Russians if United States of America or somebody from the south will start launching the nuclear missiles or maybe even cruise missiles. I'll remind you that just a few days ago, according to information we have, the Ukrainians have already damaged or let's say attacked one of these early warning systems, and as a result of the strike, as you can see, the early warning system was damaged, pretty damaged. But this is not the most important. The most important is that during the previous weeks there were a series of attacks on the same objects. The second one was attack in the vicinity of the town by the name of Orsk. So what is important from these two attacks? Of course, from perspective, we see that Ukrainians continue attempts to attack these early warning systems, but let's discuss these early warning systems in details. First of all, let's take a look at this map that shows us that both early warning systems were covering the southern part of Russia, not of in Russia, but southern part, southern direction from Russia. And there are a few important things, few important notes that I would like to discuss with you. First of all, both systems don't cover Ukraine, so Ukraine don't have any purpose to attack these early warning systems because this early warning system even doesn't look at Ukraine. This is the first important thing. The second one is both warning systems completely covers Iran. Take a look at this map carefully. This is the first early warning system that was damaged, and this is the second one, and both of them covers Iran. So which means that most likely the Western countries, when they were attacking these two systems, the main goal of those attacks were to blind and to make Russia and Iran blind, let's say, in this region. So that means that maybe Iran was the main target of those two attacks. The second thing is that both two warning systems were covering such an interesting and a very small country in the Middle East by the name of Bahrain. This is the country by the name of Bahrain, and according to information we have, there is a, let's say, the base of United States base of Fifth Fleet, which also has cruise missiles, and probably this fleet also have nuclear weapons. So for now we can make a conclusion that Ukrainians were working in favor of NATO countries trying to make blind Russia and Iran from attacks from the south that could take place from Bahrain. At least it's like a projection, some maybe small speculation, and today's video that Ukrainians continue bombing and attacking the systems confirms that Ukrainians still haven't managed to complete their job. They will continue doing this, and this is a very big problem for Iran and Russia as well, because now they need to find a solution how to stop Ukrainians doing this, more precisely how to stop Western countries, NATO countries, to use Ukraine for these purposes. Now let's move back to Ukraine. We have a lot of very interesting updates. First, once again, let's discuss France. Today Macron also published and shown us the map and showing that we must allow Ukraine to strike military targets on Russian territory from which it attacks Ukraine. So this is a very important statement, and the statement not about whether the Ukraine are going to attack Russian territory or not. This is the permission not for Ukrainians. You need to understand this, because if Ukrainian, let's say, reading quotes, soldiers and officers will attack Russia, that means that it will be Ukrainian Western officers, French officers, German officers, United States of America officers who will use the uniform of Ukraine, or maybe even not, and they will configure and set up the Western weapon to attack Russian territory. So when Macron says that we must allow Ukraine to strike military targets on Russian territory, he says that we must allow the French troopers who would be redeployed on the territory of Ukraine to attack Russian territory, and we will allow French troopers to do this. So nothing more. So this is not the permission for Ukraine. This is the permission for French troopers that most likely are already on the territory of Ukraine. About the Western troopers on the territory of Ukraine, today we got another report that in Lvov region, near the settlement of Sambir, a high precision major weapon strike hit a base of accommodating personnel of the armed forces of Ukraine, confirming losses among Ukraine armed forces personnel are up to 300 soldiers. So that means that follow the this situation, most likely there were also the let's say foreign volunteers and maybe even the soldiers from different NATO countries, including France. So this is the situation. Furthermore, we got some report about the military trainings, and according to Ukrainian sources, the mobilized will study last not 2 months but a month and a half. So this of course will affect the quality of these soldiers, and most likely this will increase the losses from the Ukrainian side. Now let's move to the line of combat contact. We have additional updates on the ground. The first important is that according to different mappers, the Ukrainians, as a result of counter-offensive operation, managed to restore control over some territories, let's say from Liptsi towards Lukyansk. So some tree lines, some forests were recaptured by the Ukrainians. So according to different mappers, this territory is already under Ukraine control. For now, we haven't received any geolocations confirming this. This is probably the first time Ukrainian counterattacks, and we need to adjust the Russian territory control. So we need to have some consultations, and after that we will decide what to do. But according to doctrine, we should adjust the map based on the, let's say, mappers, based on the, let's say, conclusions of reliable mappers. Furthermore, we have updates from non-reliable mappers that the Russians managed to improve their positions further from Liptsi in direction of Neskuchnoye Zelene, and to capture additional tree line on this direction. So we will not adjust the map because the mappers who provide this information is not 100% reliable. But this is a very important statement if it's true. Now let's move to Vovchansk. The Russians continue pummeling and bombing Ukrainian forces in the northern part. So a lot of military experts are saying that this is like a part of tactics that the Russians are using. They are not going to, they're at this stage of the special military operation. This is not in their interest to capture towns and villages very fast. From the beginning, since the beginning of the special military operation, the most important target of the Russians, the most important goal is to reduce the Ukrainian manpower, to reduce the Ukrainian army. And to do this, of course, is better approach for doing this is to force the Ukrainians to concentrate their forces in high-rise buildings, to concentrate forces in towns, in villages, not in trenches and fields, but somewhere in something like buildings, among the buildings, and then to bomb and attack these territories with ADAP 1500 or probably with FAB. So this is like the Russian approach, Russian tactics that allows them to reduce the Ukrainian army significantly. Now let's move to Kupiansk area. We have a very heavy, let's say, high activity from the Russian side on the line Kislovka, Kurilovka, Kupiansk. Significant number of Totflim tower strikes, significant number of attacks from the Russian side. So the Russians are pushing. And they're forcing the Ukrainians to fall back further to the west. Significant number of artillery systems that were destroyed. Lots of warehouses, ammo depots were destroyed during the previous 24 hours. So the Russians have complete superiority, and the Ukrainians have a lot of problems to redeploy forces from the west, from Oskol River to the east in direction of Kislovka-Kotlerovka. Today we got additional reports from Telemachovka. According to information we have from different Russian sources, the Russians began, started offensive operation from Berestova to Telemachovka, and according to some updates, the Russians managed to answer the first buildings and the first streets of the village. Of course, it's too significant. I would say that we need more details or more additional updates to confirm this information, but once again, to repeat, the Russian sources, according to different sources, entered Telemachovka already from the north and from direction of Berestova and Novoselovka. Furthermore, we have additional updates that the Russians continue improving their positions in the village by the name of Mesazharevka, and according to different mappers, this territory is already under complete Russian control. So the battle for Telemachovka is in active phase. The Russians are pushing from the north, the Russians are pushing from the south, and most likely the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back under the pressure from at least 3 or even 4 directions. Now let's move further to the south. We have Russian activity in the vicinity of Makeyevka. Different mappers continue updating their maps, let's say in the vicinity of Novodiana. Now the Russians control the forest completely. There are few defense belts, few strongholds to the northwest and to the northeast of Makeyevka. But if we increase the numbers of this since the beginning of months, we see a certain activity of the Russian forces. The Russians are operating with a broad frontline attack, and most likely during the next few days, after stabilization of the front line, they will continue offensive further to to the south. Now let's move further to Chasiv Yar direction. We haven't received almost anything during the previous night. Just few mappers confirmed additional Russian progress between Bogdanovka and Kalinovka. And when talking about Kalinovka, the Russians continue hunting the Ukrainian armored vehicles, establishing complete control over the main supply roads that goes from the central to the eastern Chasiv Yar. But when talking about situation and the progress on the ground, we can make a conclusion that during the previous night there were no additional progress of the armed, let's say, of the forces of Russian Federation. Now let's move further. Let's move further to Avdiivka area, where after a very short operational pause, the Russians renew their offensive. Most important updates are coming from the ex-Sumanska, Yasnobrodovka, Netailova. The Russians continue improving their positions, let's say, in the fields along the Balka Babaka. So this is the small river, and the Russians continue improving their positions, trying to force the Ukrainians to fall back from this bank of Balka Babaka to the Ukrainian one. And we have updates from the pro-Ukrainian deep state map that the Russians also improve their positions and capture another stronghold, let's say, between the Ukrainian positions, trying also, the main idea of the Russians is to force the Ukrainians to fall back, let's say, to the west from let's say eastern side of this red line to the western. So this is the main Russian goal, and the Russians need to maintain the line of combat contact, to shorten the line of combat contact and to establish control over something like this. It will allow them to accumulate forces in one direction and to continue further offensive operation in direction of Novoselovka, Pershe and Novopokrovsk. And this is exactly what the Russians are doing right now. More and more updates are telling us and confirming that the Russians began storming of Karlovka. There are very heavy clashes exactly along the, let's say, Vadyan and Karlovka water reservoir. For now, we don't have any geolocations confirming this. Furthermore, the Russians continue improving their positions to the south of Netailova, getting closer and closer to the village by the name of Nivoyska. So also it's just a question of time when the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back from this village as well. Now let's move. Krasnogorovka, nothing. Georgievka, nothing. Ugledar, nothing. Novomikhailov, Konstantin, nothing. And now we're moving to the most important area of the previous night, is Staromayorsk. As you can see, we have significantly adjusted the map. We have a lot of updates. Different mappers confirms that Russia established control more than, let's say, 90-80% of the village. With Deep State map confirms the same. Most of the village is already in the gray zone according to Deep State, and we have additional videos of more Russian attacks with significant number of armored vehicles, which confirms that Ukrainians show no resistance to the Russians. They basically don't have anti-tank missiles, anti-tank equipment, so the Ukrainians are abandoning. Most likely the village will be captured by the Russians today on the 29th of May. During the next few days, or somewhere by the 2nd or 3rd of June, the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, after all clearing operation, will announce about complete control. The Russians from their side continue bombing and attacking the villages further to the north, trying to slow down the Ukrainian reinforcements and reserves that Ukrainians are sending from the north to the south, but we see that the Ukrainians are not very successful in this process, and we have more FAPs and more strikes inside of Velika Novoselovka, the main base of the armor of the forces of Ukraine in this area. And most likely the Russians will try to get as close as possible to the town, trying to restore control over the territories they lost during the Ukrainian greatest counteroffensive. We don't have anything from, let's say, Robotyne as well as from Kherson, and probably that's it for the short video. Military Samurai channel reminds you, we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.